Hello and welcome back. Just want to continue the conversation as it relates to aptitude. And in particular, I'm going to talk about science, technology, and engineering and math aptitude. So aptitude is looking at your child or your skills and how they evolve over time, right? So aptitude is not something you're just born with, like, yes, this is a future scientist. We don't know those things. Everyone has that, mostly everyone has that potential to really improve on certain skills that could then lead them into a particular pathway. So again, due to my background, I'm looking at STEM in particular, and I've done a lot of work in that realm. And so for those that care, or if it matters at all, I have myself been teaching at the California Community College level for the past 20 plus years, and in particular teaching anatomy and physiology for the last 15-ish of those years, which those are courses. It's a year-long sequence, pretty rigorous sequence for folks trying to get into nursing or other allied health profession. So a very stressful learning environment. My own educational background was a bachelor's and master's looking at kinesiology, exercise physiology, as I wanted to work in a clinical setting, specifically physical therapy, cardiac rehabilitation, pulmonary rehabilitation, those kinds of things. And so I spent a number of years in a clinical environment and then went into the teaching world. And as I started teaching, I learned we don't know how to teach well, and by that, I'm really talking about post-secondary. You're talking about community college, four-year school, anyone else at that post-secondary level really doesn't get pedagogical training or learns a lot about learning theory. Instead, they just push a lot of content more often than not. So I wanted to learn more about how people learn. And so that led me to a PhD program in learning and mind science at UC Davis, which I then completed in 2013, so about a 4 to 5 year process to do that. So from that, I really learned a lot and took that information, and really that's why I'm talking now, because as I just showed you a second ago, I have had a lot of clinical experience in outpatient, inpatient, skilled nursing facility, et cetera, in working with patients, and then a lot of academic experience between the degrees and the teaching. But I've also got 3 boys of my own, who now a couple are college age, one is high school age, who have navigated their way with our help, my wife and myself, through the educational system. And so we've always pushed and prodded and hoped that they would tend to steer towards the STEM pathway, as those have the greatest promise in terms of future employment. And so anyway, here we are. And I want to share kind of the culmination of all of that with you now. And so you can take that or leave that. It's entirely up to you, obviously, but it's small bits at a time. And so I just want to highlight the difference between aptitude and achievement, because this is at the crux of what I think is wrong with education currently, and has been for a long time. Achievement, you think about youth sports. If you've got kids now that are playing youth sports, or have had kids that have played youth sports, the achievement that we see is the kid that maybe grew a little earlier than others, had some skills and abilities that were advanced of others, and by that I just mean physical attributes, like they weren't born soccer players, but they were just bigger, stronger, faster. And so in youth sports, it's particularly egregious where we see a kid just tear down the field, score a goal, and everyone thinks, man, that kid is amazing. They are the future of soccer, right? And so that's achievement. And that's compared to a kid that maybe doesn't have that same in terms of the physical attributes, but develops skills. So on the same field, but performing different tasks, that skill development is what is going to lead to that long-term aptitude, right? And so just to show you a quick sequence here, here's a 50-50 ball. You got 2 kids going after this ball. You can see red number 5, relative, is gaining possession of that ball. And by that, I mean he's not just kicking the heck out of it, but he's actually trying to possess the ball, reposition himself to screen out the opposing player, and now it really creates an instance where he has full possession of the ball, fully screened off what is now a defender, and if you look carefully, is looking up to make a play to a teammate. In other words, this is a skill that in a youth soccer game, you might not appreciate. It's more fun to see that kid just tear down the field and score the goal and say, man, that kid is unstoppable. But as these kids age, everyone catches up in terms of speed and size for the most part. And no longer can you just tear down that field. So in other words, those early successes in school that are very surface measured, we're talking kindergarten, first grade, second grade, where we're seeing surface evaluation and surface feedback, and then the surface reward system in place is not setting that child up for long-term success. Whereas another child who is working on their skills and abilities, right, listening, the ability to, let's say, memorize information at the simplest form, but at the highest form, able to process and apply information. Like that child, as they continue to evolve and develop those skills, is developing an aptitude that will serve them for the long term. And I think that's what we're all after as parents, getting our kids to have that potential for long-term success. So I just wanted to lay that out here just to get that conversation started about the differences between aptitude and achievement. Think about in your own child's instance, if the school or if you're homeschooling, if you're providing opportunities for simple achievement, right? Just recall like quick little things like this is content, tell me you know that content, boom, you're good. Or are you asking them to pay attention to how they're processing information or how they're learning that information, and then reflecting on the content, right? Two very different things. And so as we move forward, that'll become more and more obvious, but just wanted to lay out the quick definitions. So see you at the next video, hopefully.